I have a little market and wholesale bakery called Raven Breads. It's an entirely whole grain sourdough operation, which is what sets it apart from everything else in this area. So I use all locally milled flour and mostly regionally grown grains, almost all Washington grown, and then some from the greater northwestern area to make artisan breads. One of the things that drew me to baking was that bread is such a fundamental part of our food. It feels really important to be as integrated as possible with other farmers and producers in the region to create a really resilient system. So having local grains and local mills and local bakeries, like many layers of local businesses, feels really important for building a strong food system. Part of the local food system is my reason for doing what I do. Like, kind of at its core, working with whole grains is about taking full advantage of the beautiful food that we can grow in this region. The farming community here is very different, just because we're in a much more constrained space geographically, so we tend to have more high-value crops, like all the berry farming and the diversified farms. I mean, I think that's kind of at the heart of why I do all whole grain baking, is you're taking this really fundamental ingredient and you're taking full advantage of it. So instead of sending the grain through a roller mill where you strip off the bran and squeeze out the germ and separate it until you just have like pure starch left, which is what most breads are made out of, you're keeping all of the difficulty and complexity and flavor of all of the minerals and fiber and proteins that you get in a whole kernel of bread, and that they're both starting with something really fundamental and then entering a complex system. So vegetable farming, you're starting with a seed, which is like the most like essential, simple, fundamental part of life, and you're putting it into this system of weather and crop rotation and soil and water table and like all these external factors and growing something beautiful. And bread, you're taking flour, water, and salt, which is like the simplest ingredients you can work with, and introducing thousands of yeast and bacteria through your sourdough culture and creating this really complex fermentation that makes something totally different than what you started. In the business, as in my life, I try to be very aware of the social and environmental impact that I have, and that means both my petroleum consumption and also paying an enormous amount of attention to sourcing, having as little negative impact as possible. And so, I mean, we live in a petroleum economy. There's no way to separate yourself from that. I'm using grains that were mostly farmed in eastern Washington and Walla Walla, and they're being harvested with combines and trucked over here on semis, but it feels really important to be conscious of consumption and to work that awareness into the business.